Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having a fantastic start to your day. And I hope everyone is having a great weekend out there so far. And more importantly, I hope you all are staying safe. It's been incredibly active over the last 24 hours. Things went downhill fast after the sunset last night, especially as you got deep into the night, into the wee hours of the morning. In fact, it's still very active. We have ongoing tornado warnings continuing in areas along like the Arkansas-Missouri state line. So it continues to be very active, and it will be active over the next 24 hours, maybe even getting into tomorrow afternoon. But today is going to be another big day, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to discuss that. We're going to get very detailed in this and just try to get everybody a really good idea where the worst weather is going to be and what's driving such a high-end severe weather threat for today. Even though it's just an enhanced risk, this could upgrade. There's going to be tweaks from the outlook. One thing that did not change yesterday, I was very confident they were going to upgrade it to a high risk. I think a lot of people was, but they kept it at a moderate risk, and I think that was the really good call, honestly, as it was a tough day of trying to figure out where storms were going to form. But one thing that I think most of us missed on is how the significant tornado threats continue to be much further east into like Arkansas. I mean, it continues this morning. Damaging tornadoes over just the last several hours. I'm hearing reports of fatalities from a pretty well-known and reliable weather guy, storm chaser with Zach Hall in Arkansas. Some of you folks are probably familiar with him if you're tuning in from Arkansas. So just awful news, and we're certainly praying for you folks. And I think today is going to be another higher end day, and it's going to impact more higher populated regions. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it. We're going to figure this one out. I do plan on chasing. I'm going to leave after church. One thing that I try not to do is to miss church because of storm chasing. I know hurricane season might break that rule. Even though I'm very passionate about the weather, I try not to miss church because of it. That's very important to me. But going to leave after church, going to head west and then chase what happens in the Mid-South, which I am very concerned about, especially as we get later into this evening to the overnight hours. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Liking the video helps to get the video out there to more people, and I really appreciate that. And if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. And I'm certainly praying for you folks out in areas of the Southern Plains and the Mississippi Valley for sure. So let's get rocking and rolling. So a lot of energy associated with this surface low continues to chug and eject across the country. Now this surface low, which you can't see here, I need to do a better job of pulling up the surface features on here. Surface low is in here. It's more so moving now west to east instead of like southwest to northeast. So it's kind of scooting. Certainly, like I said, just more west to east. Typically they eject across the country. But anyways, this is creating a lot of weather, especially for southern sections of Missouri and northern sections of Arkansas. In the red counties and the red areas, boxed areas, circled areas, those are severe thunderstorm warnings. In the purple, that is tornado warnings. So still some nasty weather ongoing. More so just solid rainfall up here further north in Illinois, and in areas of southeastern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, and then eastern Iowa. So there's going to be multiple rounds of storms today. That's going to be the common theme. Everywhere else out west, pretty quiet, just some showers across the high plains and some rain entering the picture in the Pacific Northwest. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Now this yellow area, this is, make sure I get this right. This is a tornado watch. So I was just confused. Might have been a severe thunderstorm watch. Tornado watch. So this continues. You're going to have a risk of tornadoes that continues to progress further east. And then we're going to probably have more tornado watches issued for these same areas later on this afternoon for what I think is going to be a dangerous setup. Heat advisories. That's a big storyline here. It is quite hot down here in Louisiana. You're already waking up to warm temperatures, probably very muggy conditions, excessive heat warnings in this purple shaded color here. And not a whole lot going on out west. As far as the excessive rainfall outlook, there's a little moderate risk here. Right here in southern Kentucky, extreme northern sections, very small section of northern Tennessee. That means there's at least a 40% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles of any given point. The yellow areas, that's a 15% risk of that. So flooding will be a concern, as there'll probably be like at least 2 rounds of storms that'll move over some of the same areas, which of course produces all the severe weather, but a lot of rain also. The Storm Prediction Center let's take a broad look at it. This is the update as of a couple hours ago. There's another update that'll come out probably in about an hour and a half. I do think they'll make a little bit more changes throughout the day compared to yesterday, but a very large enhanced risk. I mean, stretching from central Missouri to northeastern Arkansas, the northern counties of Tennessee, most of Kentucky, except maybe extreme eastern Kentucky, southwestern Ohio, the southern half of Indiana and Illinois. Okay, this includes Indianapolis, Springfield, Illinois, over to Columbia and Jefferson, Columbia, St. Louis, down to Nashville, Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, Paducah. I mean, it includes a lot of real estate, a lot of areas. Okay, there's a slight risk that extends from northeast Texas all the way to the tip of Lake Erie up here, all the way to the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, which, by the way, we'll talk about. I think there'll be a nasty line of storms that sweeps through east of the Alps later on this afternoon to this evening. And then, it stretches all the way down to the deep south areas of the mid-south, so all the way up here to Chicago. So I will take a broad look at this. There's that tornado risk. We'll take a closer look at these areas. So, hang tight for me if you're wondering. Let me see a map with better, illustration of towns and cities. I got you covered. But I'm just taking this broad look at it. There's your tornado risk, 10% in the yellow, 5% in the brown, 2% in the green. The damaging wind risk is going to be significant today. Entire red area, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Yellow, 15% risk of that. Hail threat will be significant also. 30% risk in the red area of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. In the yellow, 15% risk. Okay, I know I zoomed through that kind of quick, but let's go on and get closer for you. Because there's no good graphic for this area from the Storm Prediction Center, I'm going to show you state by state, but we're going to kind of move through this fast. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time mentioning every single town that you can hopefully obviously see on the map. But here it is. St. Louis is a big one, right? Enhanced risk up, level 3 out of 5. We're just specifically showing Missouri. What about that tornado risk? Folks, we have a legit tornado threat from St. Louis Point south all the way to Poplar Bluff, all the way down to the Boot Hill, Missouri. I mean, this is a legit threat. A 10% risk. I know it's not the 15% risk of yesterday, but I'm concerned about this. And I'll talk about why later in the video. But down here in southeast Missouri, 10% risk of a tornado, but you see the black dashes going in between. 10% risk of a strong tornado, 5% risk of a tornado in the brown area. Okay. Damaging wind threat. If you live in the red area, that is a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But if you notice, you got the black dashes going in between. So that also means there's a 10% risk of significant severe winds, which is 75 miles per hour or higher. And then you got the hail threat, folks. All right. That is a 30% chance in that red area of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Yellow, 15% risk. Black outline region, a 10% risk of significant hail, which is 2 inch in diameter or larger. All right, move to Illinois. Okay, Bloomington, point south. Enhanced risk. Everybody else. From Bloomington point south, you got a level 3 out of 5 risk. Somebody asked, on Twitter earlier this morning, could this upgrade to a moderate risk? If they do, I think they'll do it right down here. But for now, I think it's smart that they're keeping it at an enhanced risk. Sorry about that. It happens about once a week. But yeah, guys, I mean, enhanced risk down here. What is this driven off of from our friends here in Illinois? Well, by far, the most highest risk of a tornado is in southern Illinois. Marion, Carbondale, Mount Vernon, you might as well say, just south of St. Louis. Like I said, 10% risk of a strong tornado. You might as well just leave it at that. Okay? So 10% risk of a tornado, but also a 10% risk of a strong tornado, EF2 or higher. All right, what about the wind threat? It's quite significant for the entire southern half of Illinois. From basically Bloomington point south, not only do you have a 30% chance of winds pushing 55 to 60 miles per hour or higher, you also have a 10% risk of winds pushing 75 miles per hour or higher in all these areas here in Illinois. All right. Hail outlook. Now, the highest threat is a little bit further south than the wind threat. Basically just south of Springfield, Effingham, Mount Vernon, Marion, Carbondale, 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then the black outline region, which is pretty much over the entire red area, you have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. Illinois, A little bit further north in the yellow, 15% risk of hail. All right, Indiana. Indianapolis, I know, the Indy 500. I know it's not NASCAR. I'm sorry. You guys forgive me for that. But all the way up to Lafayette, Muncie, however way y'all pronounce that, enhanced risk. Everybody points south down to Evansville, Bloomington again. But in Indiana, Jasper, Corydon, you guys have that enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. All right. What is this driven off of? Well, the tornado risk, you don't have that 10% risk into Indiana. That could change. I don't expect it to change much. I don't expect that to extend really any further northeast. But the entire southern half of Indiana does have the 5% risk of a tornado. Okay, the wind threat, quite significant. Could have a nasty line of storms rumbling through Indianapolis later. The red area, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. The yellow area, 15% risk of that. And then if you lived in the hatched risk, the black outline region with the black dashes going in between it, Bloomington, down to Evansville, just south of Indianapolis, 10% risk of winds exceeding that 75 miles per hour or higher. Hail threat, a little bit further south of that, just like Illinois. This is confined to the far southern and southwestern areas of Indiana. Jasper, Evansville, 30% risk of hail, exceeding 1 inch. And then there's a 10% risk of significant hail, exceeding 2 inches. A 10% risk of that. Not 30 plus 10, just its own thing, 10. Okay? And then we move to Kentucky. Everybody but like the extreme eastern side of Kentucky, the eastern hills of Kentucky, has an enhanced risk. I mean, you got Lexington, Louisville, Frankfort, Covington, down to London, Bowling Green, Owensboro, Mayfield, Paducah, Madisonville, and everybody in between that's not shown here. Enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. It's going to get pretty dicey in this area. I would say especially in southwestern Kentucky later on this afternoon, this evening. Maybe multiple rounds of storms. What is this driven off of? Your highest tornado risk is confined to western Kentucky. Down over here in Paducah, I think some nasty weather could occur. 10% risk of a tornado, 10% risk of a strong tornado, 5% risk in the brown, 2% risk of a tornado in the green. This is where I think that this could extend. This could extend a little bit further, maybe all the way to Bowling Green. And then we're about to talk about Tennessee, where I think it could extend all the way to Nashville, potentially. Okay, what about the rest of the outlook, the wind outlook? All right, Kentucky here, huge wind threat with this. 30% chance in the red area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Black outline region, a 10% risk of significant winds, which is a 10% risk of winds exceeding 75 miles per hour or higher. Okay, wind threat's big. Hail threat's large too, guys. Red area, 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. If you live in that black outline region, which covers most of this red area, there's a 10% risk of larger hail, 2 inch in diameter or larger. Okay, and then we'll round this off by looking at Tennessee. And I know we're going to leave some people out, like Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. But that's why we took that extended outlook. Now, I'll try to cover those other states to the south while I talk about this. Tennessee, of course, we got Nashville, household city name, Clarksville, Dyersburg. Enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5 for you folks. And I think this is the area of this severe weather threat where things could really, now I think we're going to have a nasty line of storms sweeping through the northern counties into eastern Tennessee this afternoon. But I think that things could get significant tonight, unfortunately, when the sun goes down. And we'll break that down when we break down the radar. But level 3 out of 5 risk, enhanced risk. What about a tornado risk? If you live in this yellow area, that's a 10% risk of a strong tornado. 10% risk of a tornado in general within 25 miles in a given location. Includes northwestern Tennessee. The brown area, that's a 5% risk of a tornado. Guys, I do think this could extend a little bit further southeast. We just have to watch. But we'll see what happens. But you got a 2% risk of a tornado all the way into upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina. 5% risk of a tornado all the way down to Huntsville, Florence, Alabama, Tupelo, Mississippi, over to Chattanooga, Memphis. So pretty large area runs that 5% risk of a tornado. What about a damaging wind risk? I think this will get extended southeastern too, in my opinion. Might not, guys. I was wrong about yesterday. Certainly wrong sometimes. I'm wrong a lot of times, even outside weather, right? So the red area, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But of course, the black outline region, which includes just about all the red area in Tennessee, 10% risk of winds exceeding 75 miles per hour or higher. Damaging winds will be a big threat with this one, especially when the low-level jet gets ramped up later this evening. Then if you live in the yellow area, which does include these other states too, not highlighted, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Hail outlook, last thing we'll look at as far as the outlooks. Red area, a 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Black outline region, 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. Yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch. Okay, so now let's break down the radar. So we're going to include everybody obviously you see on this screen: Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, the western half of Kentucky, the western half of Tennessee, and even northern Arkansas, which I haven't mentioned in this video that much. So we have ongoing nasty weather right now. In fact, we could have a tornado on the ground right now in areas along the Missouri-Arkansas line. All this energy that you're seeing here is what's actually happening right now. That's that energy here. You got multiple severe thunderstorm warnings. You got tornado warnings. You got a lot of weather happening right now. So we go back to this. The HRRR model picking up on this, I think, about as good as a model can. So you keep this rolling. This is around 7 a.m. Central Time. And remember, if you're confused about the time frame, most of this event's going to be in Central Time. Not all of it, but most. So this is an Eastern Time up here. So back this up 1 hour. So this is 8 a.m. So keep that in mind. Back it up 1 hour while I'm making my way through this. So we take it to about mid-morning, 10 a.m. Line of storms continues to rumble through western Kentucky, areas of like north of Nashville, the northern counties of Tennessee. Okay, there's like three things going on. There's storms up here in Illinois, and storms continuing down here in southeast Missouri. So you guys are going to have to help me out here because I'm going to miss different areas. I want to limit any kind of confusion, but there's going to be a lot of areas of storms dancing around out here. So you continue. This is a great example of it. Pretty decent line of storms rumbling through, getting all the way to Chicago about lunchtime, knocking on the doorstep of Indianapolis around lunchtime. Okay, already stormy, a line of storms moving through. You still got this line of storms surging through southern Kentucky. Storms embedded in between all this line of storms moving through the northern counties of Tennessee down here, kind of getting east of Nashville now, getting near Clarksville and stuff like that. No, Clarksville's over here. I'm sorry, not to get distracted, getting into the eastern sections of Tennessee now. You got this line of storms sweeping in also. Okay, and then you continue to get into, and might not be the exact evolution of this, especially down here. I think this is going to happen up here. Down here, I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. I think you're at least going to get one line of storms this afternoon. Could get two in Kentucky and Tennessee. But you continue to get another line of storms sweeping through the northern sections of Tennessee, most of Kentucky, and then this heads on out the picture. Now, this is when that 10% risk of a tornado and a strong tornado really kicks in. Notice it's around 3 p.m. St. Louis here, Boot Hill, Missouri here, Dyersburg here, Mayfield, Paducah, Kentucky right in here, Jonesboro, Arkansas here, Evansville here. Just trying to give you an idea where we are at. 3 p.m., 4 p.m. You see this storm firing off right here? This, if the atmosphere recovers quick enough, will have an opportunity to produce a strong tornado. And then we take it to 5 p.m. I think immediately we're dealing with tornadoes once again in the same area that we're dealing with tornado warnings right now. Okay, there's going to be a leftover boundary right into here, and then we get into 6 p.m. You start to get more shower and storm activity that forms. Look at this storm just south of and southwest of St. Louis. All these storms in southeastern Missouri, very concerning, capable of producing not only tornadoes, but strong tornadoes. I think the Storm Prediction Center has the right idea where they have the most highlight area that runs the highest risk of tornadoes. You get to 7 p.m., 8 p.m., I think this grows upscale pretty fast, meaning it really begins to turn into just a kind of a congealed line of storms. I don't think the tornado threat necessarily goes down, though. I'll talk about why. I think because the low-level jet really increases, this will continue to fuel not only the damaging wind threat, but a tornado threat too. We saw that happen last night. Okay, so we got a line of storms kind of erupting up here in southern Illinois and southern Indiana. And then this is the concerning line of storms here, capable of producing all hazards. This continues to dive down. And then we have one giant sweeping line of storms that continues some areas, this will be your third line of storms. This is around 10 p.m. this afternoon. But you see everybody on the southern flank of these storms into here, Dyersburg here, Boot Hill, Missouri. You have a lot of storm energy, CAPE, fueling the atmosphere that's has not been tapped into yet. That is going to be fueling the southern flank of these storms. And this is concerning to me, especially as a low-level jet begins to increase with a surface low up here. So, I mean, we have to stop it right there, and then we have to go to the 06Z, which looks a little different. No, 06Z right here, and kind of start off where it left off. And this is a nasty line of storms. I mean, this is like 11 p.m. This is midnight. Look at this line of storms diving all the way down. It's already moved through northeastern Arkansas. It's moving into western Tennessee, blasting Memphis, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. And this is concerning. I think you're going to have an embedded tornado risk in this line of storms in western Tennessee, western Kentucky tonight after the sun goes down, and then it sweeps on through. Okay? So I know that was a lot. That's a mouthful, right? So there's a lot of different things going on. This is the significant tornado parameter around right now. This is what the model's showing. And it makes sense, okay? You got ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings right here in southeastern Missouri right now. And remember, the significant tornado parameter tells us the higher the number, the better ingredients for tornadoes. But if you don't get any storm development to tap into those ingredients, well, you don't get a tornado threat. You got to have storms that actually form. And right now, they're in place right here. In the southern flank of these storms, you got high-end energy feeding into these storms. So you continue and you get this. You continue to get this. Like, for example, this is for like midnight. I'm sorry, not midnight, lunchtime today. You see how you got the significant tornado parameter? The numbers are like anywhere from 5 to higher, and then abruptly cuts off right and it gets into here. Because there are storms into this region eating up all the ingredients, the fuel for tornadoes. But where the energy is not tapped into, you still got higher numbers. So basically, the tornado risk is going to be there where there's going to be storms. And this extends all the way to lunchtime, all the way into Kentucky, Tennessee. You continue to have this. Look how it spikes later on this afternoon. Right into here, spikes to over a 10, 11, 12. Once again, it builds back into Missouri ahead of those supercells that are going to develop. And even into western Kentucky this afternoon when some lines are going to sweep in. And I say western Kentucky, I mean central Kentucky too, northern Tennessee. And then it really spikes right here where they have that 10% risk of a tornado. This is 6, 7 p.m. And I really think this is because that low-level jet really enhances the kinematics right here into this region. And you're going, I mean, this is around 8 p.m. The sun's starting to get low in the sky. You're starting to potentially have to deal with a nocturnal thing. And yeah, and then that line of storms basically forms. And you notice how it dramatically cuts off into here. It's around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And as soon as that storm moves into all that energy that's fueling a tornado threat, then of course your atmosphere calms down. You're in the negatives over here in Missouri. But this is what's concerning. Like, for example, it's around 10 p.m. You got a line of storms moving into a pretty decent environment all the way through about midnight, maybe even later. Okay? So you look at the updraft Felicity swath. This is for what's going on right now, right? I mean, you already got rotation with these storms, and sure enough, we've had tornadoes. You continue to keep this going. Watch how it kind of follows those first 1 to 2 rounds of storms into Kentucky, northern Tennessee. Tornado threat through the afternoon, late morning, afternoon, early evening into Kentucky. But then those supercells form just south of St. Louis. You see that one area just popped up here, and this indicates rotation with the atmosphere in these updrafts, right, and stronger updrafts. And then once again, you see how these kind of areas right in here fill in, and all this is kind of muffling, what happens later. So it's hard to see what happens, but tornado threat will continue to unfold with this line of storms later into this evening to the overnight hours. So basically, you look at this entire region between now and the next 24 hours. There's going to be a tornado threat in this entire area here. Okay, and then the damaging wind threat is going to be there too. Let's make sure we show that. And let's see. Give me 1 second, guys. Here we go. Let's go back to look at this. Sweep it all the way through. So let's just take it through the next 24 hours. You see all these areas right here that have highlighted colors, 65, 75 mile per hour wind gusts. Listen, this entire region here is going to run the risk for significant winds. I mean, it's splotchy. It's there because you have multiple lines of storms that moves through. It's all kind of blended together. Just know Any storm, if you get just a severe thunderstorm warning, not even a tornado warning, it's probably going to have the capability of producing damaging winds. Okay, severe winds, severe thunderstorm warning. Okay, so let's move on down the road a little bit to my friends here in the Carolinas, the eastern Tennessee, the rest of Kentucky, West Virginia, even southern Ohio, point south down to Georgia. This morning, you're waking up to pretty quiet conditions. The first concern is what we just mentioned with the first line of storms, okay? And I know I've already kind of talked about the western half of Tennessee and Kentucky, but we'll kind of blend it in here. But you continue to get this first round, right? See this line of storms moving through central Kentucky. Early afternoon, it's around 1 p.m. I would watch the southern edge of this storm the most. You know, if you live in this region down here, even in southern Kentucky, we're getting close to like London, Kentucky, for example. First round of storms, right? Rumbling through. This is affecting southwestern southwestern Ohio, like Columbus, things like that. It's already moved through Lexington. I think this will start to lose a little bit of steam once it starts to get into like 4 to 5 p.m., but you're still getting some storms up here in southern Ohio. Storms starting to move into western West Virginia. This first round of storms moves through western Virginia, the Tri-Cities regions up here in Tennessee. Probably affects I would say the northern mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. You see this other line of storms right behind it, guys. You got to watch the southern edge of these storms, like Nashville earlier on. And I really am concerned about these storms too. I think that this line of storms right here will have an opportunity to produce a tornado threat for eastern Tennessee, especially in the southern Kentucky too, especially northern eastern Tennessee right in here. This line of storms could mean business. Embedded tornadoes, you could have a semi-discrete supercell embedded in this line of storms. 5 p.m., 6 p.m., this really just blasts through northeastern Tennessee right around dinner time tonight. What is the Tri-Cities regions? You guys, I know I got a lot of viewers up in that area. You gotta watch out for these storms. Down here to Chattanooga, this could very well extend all the way down here to the southern edge of the Cumberland Plateau, but it might not. But these are the storms that could really, they look like they really intensify once they get into extreme northeastern Tennessee, western Virginia. Okay, and then I think they get over the mountains, they get into the Piedmont and the Triad of North Carolina, and this is when you got to watch out for Hickory, Winston-Salem, eventually Charlotte. This is 7, 8 p.m. I'm telling you, this line of storms could pack a punch in western North Carolina, and I think they will eventually lead all the way into central North Carolina, where I think eventually they will lose some steam. All right, upstate of South Carolina too. And then behind this, okay, this is where we'll have to stop and go back to the 06Z. Okay, behind this, what's going to happen for this area behind this? So this is, for example, this is around 11 p.m. midnight. Watch these storms in northern Alabama too. You know, Huntsville Point, South Florence, you want to watch these. These could tap into something. We could get some tornado warnings too. But then huge sweeping line of storms, embedded tornado threat, damaging wind threat, large hail threat. I think Kentucky, overnight, the atmosphere has worked up a little bit too much from the earlier in the afternoon, evening convection and storms. Western Kentucky, different story. Eastern half of Kentucky, I think we're going to get heavy rain and stuff and storms, but I don't think it'll be as intense. This is when the southern half of Tennessee, northern Alabama, Tupelo, Mississippi, starts to get very active into the overnight hours. And this is, certainly where I'm concerned for an overnight tornado threat in the middle of Tennessee. And then eventually, you got to watch into northern Alabama as we are getting into the wee hours of the morning. This is about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I think we could be dealing with a decaying line of storms as it's entering northern Georgia, the southern Alps region, upstate of South Carolina, as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So, yeah, it's a mouthful, guys. So, significant tornado parameter. Like I said, it's going to try to fuel those lines, that first line of storms that moves in. And then that second line of storms moves in, really, really affects southern Kentucky and eventually gets into Tennessee. And you see how the significant tornado parameter begins to spike here. The numbers begin to climb. Remember, this indicates the higher the number, this means the better ingredients for tornadoes. And the reason it's a 0 up here in Kentucky is because that first line of storms moves in, cleans out the atmosphere, stabilizes it for a time. But you continue to move forward, you see how it's building back in western Kentucky. You're still going to be having this line of storms sweeping through eastern Tennessee. You see how the significant tornado perimeter is. You got a few to several numbers up. The ingredients is there for tornadoes. So that's, I want to watch this line of storms. I mean, there's even 1s, 2s, and 3s in upstate of South Carolina, areas of North Carolina ahead of those storms. But this is why I'm concerned. As you get into 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m., you see how the significant tornado parameter is still, pretty high. Anytime you see a number, basically, that means you at least got some ingredients for tornadoes. But, you got, 4s, 5s, and 6s, even spiking to higher south of Nashville, Cumberland Plateau. Look at this area right here. So, this is around 11 p.m. This is why I'm concerned about that tornado threat tonight. I think the threat continues into the middle of Tennessee, and then eventually it will diminish. Your updraft Felicity swath reflects this, guys. Here comes the afternoon line of storms. You see how this entire area gets lit up? What the updraft Felicity swath is, it indicates rotating updrafts. Stronger updrafts, where you have a rotating updraft, you have a rotation in the atmosphere, you have a shot at having a tornado. Not a guarantee, could be broad rotation, but you got rotation with this storm. And this continues to ride that Kentucky-Tennessee line all the way into eastern Tennessee. And then look at the updraft Felicity swath even into western North Carolina, indicating rotation with this line of storms. Okay, that's the first punch. Things are maybe quieter for a time, like a few hours. And then we kind of move deeper into the night. Watch how the middle of Tennessee starts to kind of get highlighted here. And it's not that significant, but even shows a tornado threat in the northern Alabama tonight. So, I would watch out. I would say that this is a little underdone. I think we're going to have rotation with these storms, and I think things could get significant even well after midnight, well after the sun goes down tonight. Okay, rotation is indicated with these storms. So we'll take a look at the ingredients thermodynamic-wise. When I talk about thermodynamics, I mean the surface temperatures, your dew points, are they in the 60s and 70s, which supports the moisture levels for these severe storms, your lapse rates, your CAPE levels, your storm fuel in the atmosphere, and then your kinematics, your wind flow at the surface, aloft. Is it favorable? Is it not? Those are the things you look at. Where's your best overlapping conditions of both? So you're waking up this morning to very moist conditions, right? Not only do you have dew points in the 60s, you have dew points in the 70s. A rich Gulf of Mexico air right up the Mississippi Delta region, the Valley region, right up the Mississippi River, west and east of it. So very moist air building is really already there for this setup. Okay, very moist air. I think that the HRRR model is notorious for underdoing dew points. So I think all these areas you see dew points in the 60s in Tennessee, Alabama, I think they'll be in the upper 60s to low 70s. So basically you look at this, check this off the box, very ripe, moist air mass like you typically have this time of the year. You typically don't struggle with moisture levels once you get into late May, early June. Okay, your dew points are tropical. In response to those higher dew points, your CAPE levels will build. This is a great learning lesson right here. You see how you basically have no energy here in Kentucky, and then you get south and you got CAPE levels over 2,000 joules per kilogram. It's because a line of storms just moved through and ate up the atmosphere. What I'm concerned about is how it builds back into this region after the morning, early afternoon storms in Missouri, Illinois, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, northeastern Arkansas. Look how the CAPE levels build. Goes all the way up to over 4,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer CAPE. Tons of rocket fuel energy to fuel a tornado threat in these severe storms. And then this continues, and you notice there's still energy in the atmosphere overnight in Tennessee. You don't need CAPE levels over 5,000 joules per kilogram to get a tornado threat. 1,000 will get the job done if you have favorable kinematics. Okay, so a lot of energy still down here in South Carolina, still a lot of energy in the atmosphere. But the wild card with a lot of these severe weather threats is, what about your kinematics? Your low level shear, directional shear. So this morning, low level jet, as you can tell, is already kind of right in this region. Okay, it's what's fueling that tornado threat this morning. But you start to get into the afternoon hours, just kind of splotchy areas, and really this is just generated off these lines of storms. But watch as you start to get into the afternoon, evening, starting to get into the evening hours, that low-level jet begins to increase over this region, kind of become more broad and setting the stage. So, This is around 6, 7, 8 p.m. You got a 30 to 40 knot low-level jet, which supports a tornado risk. But, watch as we get into the overnight hours. This isn't really the overnight. This is late evening. It's starting to get 8 to 10 p.m. 40 to 50 knot low-level jet now riding over this region. So this is the concerning thing right here is your low-level kinematics increase, your tornado risk increases, and it just increases even more so as we get closer to midnight, as all of a sudden you get this low-level jet pushing over 50 knots in some of these regions. And this really fuels the damaging wind threat into the overnight hours. And it also fuels, it maintains, I would say, a tornado risk. Doesn't necessarily increase it, it maintains it. Okay, so that's the severe weather breakdown for today. The rest of the country, the southeast, we get into the afternoon hours. Nothing really going to happen for the most part. We've already broke down most of this area for like the deep south, but you got to watch those strong to severe storms that forms along the Mississippi Delta region, eastern Arkansas, and northwestern Mississippi. Some strong to severe storms later this afternoon into this evening. We'll watch those storms in North Carolina. And we'll also watch Arkansas. Even though I didn't really break you guys down much, I do apologize for that. There's just so much to cover. You guys will have some strong to severe storms that form and blast through Arkansas also. Could be all the way down here into northeastern Texas too. So storms overnight. This line of storms continues. And then we're waking up to some leftover moisture across the southern Alps region in the southeast. Okay. Northeast, pretty quiet start. Some rain showers in northern Maine. We'll watch this line of storms that kind of bubbles up and moves from the southwest to the northeast. This could make it all the way into southern Michigan by the time we get into this afternoon. Could produce some strong to severe storms and could get some strong to severe storms all the way up into Detroit. I mean, look at this line of storms kind of moving in this afternoon. Dayton, Ohio could get it. Columbus, maybe eventually all the way up to Cleveland. Could get some storms this afternoon. These storms will try to sweep through West Virginia, kind of a broken line of storms. Could get, most likely will get, some pop-up showers and storms, in New Jersey, eastern PA, southern New England. Pop-up strong to severe storm or two is possible. And then the leftover energy will kind of try to make its way into areas of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. Waking up tomorrow morning to some scattered shower and downpour activity across the northeast, southern Ontario up to Quebec. So, south central U.S., besides some isolated strong to severe storms that could form in Arkansas, northeastern Texas. There's one right here, right in the Texarkana region. Could get a stronger severe storm that forms a little bit further southwest in Texas too. But outside of that, I think most of the area, Oklahoma, Kansas, points north, points northwest, it's pretty quiet weather today. North central U.S., dealing with that rain this morning in the upper Midwest, kind of spinning around. There's that surface low. So we're going to be dealing with kind of a showery Sunday across western, southern Wisconsin, and then eventually right up near this surface low. I'm telling you, I would watch northern Illinois for a little isolated tornado risk right up to the surface low. Here's these storms right in here. I would be careful with that. Northern Rockford, Janesville, you guys watch out in this area later this afternoon to this evening. Some additional storms could form in southern sections of Iowa too. There's that line of storms sweeping through lower Michigan, then weakens pretty dramatically. We got a lot of shower and downpour activity across the Great Lakes region tonight. There's the shower activity dancing around the north central U.S. And we're just going to have a soggy overnight hours across the UP and Michigan, most likely with the approaching low pressure. Western U.S., it's kind of a dreary day up here in Seattle, really just the western half of Washington. We're going to get those showers and storms dancing around across the Dakotas. But man, I would say 90% of the western U.S. is pretty quiet. Very nice Sunday. Enjoy your weather for sure. Temperatures. Look at this weird little area where the temperatures are lower. This is because lines of storms making their way through. But where you're not storming, pretty much anywhere except northern Maine, you have an opportunity to warm into the 80s. Even well into the 90s into the southeast. A very hot day across the deep south, the southeast, a lot of high humidity. Yeah. You move into the western U.S., central U.S., very hot day in Texas, very hot day all the way into Oklahoma. Very warm conditions into the deep south, the desert southwest, the southwest. And then, it's starting to warm back up in the northern and central Rockies, but it'll be pretty chilly up here in Washington State because of the showers and stuff like that. Now, I'm not going to get into tomorrow's threat, but there is a slight risk. I think I don't think tomorrow is going to be that significant. I think there'll be a risk. There's 2 areas to watch now. One down here in the deep south, really thermodynamic driven, and one up here in the mid-Atlantic. This is more so, I would say, kinematic driven. But even in the dark green, you run the risk of severe weather from Memorial Day. But you do have I would say, a more of a tornado risk up here. Only a 2% risk for now. D.C., Washington, down to Richmond, into northern North Carolina, just north of Raleigh. But there's that 2% risk of a tornado. Wind threat, bimodal setup, 15% risk of winds here and here. Means there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, 15% risk of hail here, 15% risk of hail here. So there is a threat of severe weather for tomorrow. Folks, that's all I got. I want to mention my plan right now is, like I said, to leave church and to go storm chasing this afternoon. Not sure what I'm going to get. Not sure what's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to get to those supercells in like Missouri, Western Kentucky, Western Tennessee in time, most likely, unless I was in an airplane. But I plan on chasing whatever's out in front of me, chasing into the overnight hours, and most likely, possibly chasing Monday too. So just wish me luck there. Pray for me if you don't mind. But more importantly, pray for the people that live in these areas, because I'm driving to these areas. Definitely make your priority for those prayers for those people who live in these impact areas. But I might go live a couple times. I might not. Hopefully in the future, I'll have a setup where I can just flat out go live. A lot of people ask, Mitch, why don't you go live during these severe weather events from your house? Storm chasing, go live. Right now, I don't do weather full time, so I'm just not able to 100% commit. But I would tell you, one thing that is absolutely a goal with this channel is even before I do this full time, is this once things kind of get rolling again, my wife starts her elementary school job, and we're able to just get the ball rolling with that. I plan to really invest things back into this, and I've been saying that for a couple years now. Nobody's complained about it, but I've had to practice patience with this, and I've just kind of been stagnant with my upgrades. And I know a lot of people say, Mitch, you don't need to upgrade anything, but there's a couple things that I want to do to this channel to make it more. I feel like there's a lot of things that we can tap into and a lot of potential with this channel that we can do to really just bring more to it. And storm chasing is a huge passion of mine. I don't think I'll ever do it full time to the point where people will drive 8 states away just for a slight risk. But I do hope to go live during these storm chases and things like that. So, but enough of all that. You guys stay safe today. God bless all y'all. And I'll talk to you later on this afternoon, this evening. God bless.